Hey guys, my name is Nick and welcome back to the channel, and we return to the in-depth series. This is the series where we go into as much detail as possible on a specific unit. I'm mostly focusing on Thousand Sons and Tzeentch Daemons for this series at the moment, and in this particular episode we are taking a look at the Screamer unit. Now the video is going to focus on stats, how best I think you should be using them, their key weakness on how you want to take them out, and what units to buff, what stratagems to use, what psychic powers to use, and so on. Just bear in mind, this is my opinion. If you have a contrary opinion or you think there are some things that I've missed, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. But as usual, if you enjoy this content on this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, press that little bell icon for notifications of all my future uploads. But let's get straight into the video. So as usual with my in-depth series, we kick off by taking a good look at the datasheet itself. Excuse any firework noise the microphone may be picking up in the background. It is Diwali, so there's lots of celebration going on at the moment. Anyway, the Screamer, a power level of 4 for a base unit of 3 Screamers. You can include 3 additional Screamers for +4 power rating, which makes 8 power level, and up to 6 additional, giving you 9 for +8, so 12 power level for 9 dudes. They have a move of 16 inches, a weapon skill of 4+, no ballistic skill because they don't shoot. They have a strength of 4, a toughness of 4, they come with 2 wounds, 3 attacks, a leadership of 7 and a save of 6+. But we're not fussed about the save of 6+, as any Tzeentch player will know, but we'll cover that in a second. They come equipped with a Lamprey Bite. So these guys are close combat only, and that Lamprey Bite is a melee, range and type of weapon. Its strength is +2, an AP of -3, and a damage of 2. Now that damage of 2 is very important to remember. The abilities of this unit are Demonic, Ephemeral Form and Demonic Ritual, which basically means they now have a 4+ invulnerable save, which is why I said ignore the fact they've got a 6+, and Demonic Ritual means they can be summoned. They have a slashing attack, which if they move over an enemy unit during the movement phase, and your unit didn't fall back in that movement phase, you can choose one of those enemy units and roll a d6 for each Screamer in that unit, and for every 6 you inflict a mortal wound on that enemy unit. So very, very cool if you're in a close confined fight and you want to fly over stuff. Faction keywords then are Chaos, Tzeentch and Demons. Keywords Beast, Fly and Screamers. Fly being a very important keyword to worry about here. Let's cover the important points values then, because most people do play match play, surprisingly enough, and each Screamer is 31 points each. Now that is quite expensive, but you are getting quite a bit of bang for your buck. You know, a 4+ invulnerable save, that massive move of 16 inches, which is huge really, considering that they are a melee unit and you want to get them into combat. But 31 points, yeah, that's double wounds, 3 attacks, and those attacks are beastly when they get into combat. So 31 points probably slightly justifiable, but they are a big point sink in your army, and that for me makes them a difficult choice to include. I don't think they're an auto-include. But as usual in this series, what I want to do is take what is a base unit and see if we can make it any better. And we make things better by adding buffing units. This is how 8th edition works, and the buffing unit that I'm choosing to elect to go with here is the Fluxmaster, which is basically a herald on a disc. Now he has a movement range of only 12, so he is going to struggle to keep up a little bit, but what you can do is advance him and that will keep him up, because what you're using here is one of his abilities and psychic powers, and they are unaffected by any advanced movement. So move and advance should keep you there or thereabouts with your Screamer unit. Now the ability we're concerned about here is the Locus of Tzeentch, which adds 1 to the strength characteristic of a Tzeentch Demon unit within 6 inches of one of these models with this ability. This unit has that ability. And because the Lamprey Bite is a +2 to your base level strength, you're going to make your Screamers up to strength 7. Now against most infantry, that's not going to make a huge amount of difference to you. You're going to be wounding on a 3+ in most cases. So a strength of 6 versus toughness 4 or 5, which is a lot of stuff in this game, then you're going to be facing a 3+ roll. Where this little boost of strength really comes into its own is when you engage flyers. Now a lot of flyers in 40k in 8th edition have a toughness value of 7, And also a lot of ground vehicles as well could be toughness 7, but what I'm really concerned about is using the fly keyword to attack and engage flyers in close combat. And if you can get these guys up to strength 7, instead of wounding that flyer on a 5+, you're now wounding it on a 4+, and with 3 attacks each and 2 damage, you're going to start damaging flyers very quickly, very effectively, and bringing their statistics level down to something a bit more combat ineffective. So that is the reason why I am recommending the Fluxmaster here to go along and basically rip aircraft out of the sky. My second recommended unit for buffing is the Demon Prince. I've got a Demon Prince with wings because he has a better movement. He can move up to 12 as well and keep up with your Screamers in the same way that the Herald or the Fluxmaster could. Now the ability buffing power we are looking for here is the Prince of Chaos, where we can re-roll hit rolls of 1 made for friendly demon units within 6 inches of this model. Now when you've got a close combat unit that is a 4+ weapon skill, you're going to want some bonuses where you can get them. So that re-roll of any 1s is really going to help get some of the damage through that these guys can output. Because when they hit with an AP -3 and a damage of 2, they're going to cause some real pain. But what you really need to make sure is you get as many hit dice through as possible, and having those re-rolls is really going to benefit you. Now that Demon Prince, which is a close combat beast and is on his own right, running with another combat unit, is really going to wreck face when they get into combat, and they're going to be highly prized targets, I would assume, for enemy players. Now what's better than running one buffing character is to run both, so we can add in our Fluxmaster and our Demon Prince to our unit of screening Screamers. Both of your 2 characters can't be shot at because they're under 10 wounds and characters, so you stick them in the middle, not shown in this picture, I've just shown this for aesthetics, but put those in the middle so they can't be targeted, and then run them with your Screamers for both the rerolls to 1 and that +1 to their strength, and you're going to end up with a very formidable, albeit slightly expensive, beastly unit. There are a couple of other characters you could consider running with this, but they are exceptionally expensive, and that is the Fate Weather and the Lord of Change. And the only thing you're really going to get out of these guys is the morale phase of using the Greater Demon, in ensuring that your guys aren't rolling on their pitiful leadership of 7, they're going to roll on a leadership of 10. But to be honest, to get that bonus, that's very, very expensive. But if you are concerned about losing models to morale, then we can use our Demon Prince that we've got here, who's more likely to be a Warlord option than a Fate Skimmer, and that is to use Warp Tether as your Warlord trait. Now this gives you a reroll morale test for friendly Tzeentch Daemon units within 9 inches of your Warlord. So that gives you a chance to reroll some of those nasty failed tests where you could be losing some models. So a Warlord trait there that certainly could be worth considering, especially on a more powerful Warlord like your like a Demon Prince, for example. Now both these characters that we could potentially be attaching to your Screamers are Psychers. From the looks of the Tzeentch Psychic power table, there is not a lot to pick from here to try and enhance your Screamers from a Psychic perspective. Realistically, you're talking Boon of Change for that warp value of 7, and that gives you a random chance of an extra attack, an extra point of strength, or an extra point of toughness. The extra attack would be awesome. Getting that +1 attack on these guys would be amazing. If you get +1 strength and then you're taking that buff from your Fate Skimmer, these guys could end up at strength 8, which would mean anything toughness 4 is being wounded on 2s, which is very powerful. And also you'll start to damage, you know, those tougher flyers on maybe a 3+ instead of a 4+. So be very conscious, even though it is a bit of a random one, that things like that can make a huge difference. Now from a stratagem perspective, there are a couple that we can consider. Unfortunately, the best one of the bunch has been nerfed in the recent FAQ 2.0, and that was Warp Surge, which for 2 command points meant that you could increase the invulnerable save of a demon unit by 1 to a maximum of 3+. So you could give your Screamers a 3+ invulnerable save. Unfortunately, that has been nerfed, and you can't increase the invulnerable save to a more than 4+ now. So completely wasted opportunity to use that one. So strongly recommend you don't bother. So realistically then, from a stratagem perspective, you're talking Denizens of the Warp, which is the one where you can put them in reserve, which means you are going to forego a whole turn of them arriving because they can only arrive from turn 2. So for 1 command point, you can set up a demon unit with a power level of 8 or less in the warp, and for 2 points you can choose a demon unit with a power rating of 9 or more. So depending on the size of your Screamer unit, you can spend either 1 or 2 command points to do that. For me, the speed these guys move at, and if your table is suitably covered with appropriate line blocking terrain, I would be more in favour of deploying them on the ground, using that speed to get behind line of sight blocking terrain with your character buffs that you're going to be running with them, and then just try and get up the table rather than rely on that deep strike and then not have those buffing characters nearby without spending even more command points to bring them in. Now, if your table is unfortunately limited on its terrain, or the terrain is very slim on the ground, these models are quite fiddly, quite long and quite large, because they come on these, large bases, and trying to position them is actually very, very difficult because they get in each other's way with those big tails. So there might be an opportunity, depending on the table you've got, to stick them in the warp and rely on a 9+ roll to get them into combat. So we've discussed all of their strengths really so far. There seems to be quite a lot of them. They're very fast, they hit like a brick shithouse, and they can be buffed suitably well with some appropriate characters. But what are their weaknesses? As with pretty much any other demon, especially in line with the flamers as well, and I've done an in-depth video on that which I'll make sure I include all the relevant links in the description. But 2 wounded demons at toughness 4, it is a case of volume of fire to get rid of them. You don't want them hitting you in combat. That is a fact. So you're going to sit there and you want to spend cheap weapons just to try and hit them up and cause as many wounds as you possibly can, and hope that in the morale phase that they're going to lose a few more to that. What you don't want to be doing is putting in expensive, big, pointed, lots of AP type weapons into them, like las cannons or missile launchers or melter weapons, because that is where you will see them roll that 4+ invulnerable save just at the point you don't. Whereas something like an auto gun or a bolter or something of equivalent basic strength that you find in mass in an army, that's the one where you're going to fail your save. You're going to watch those big weapons get chinned on a 4+ invulnerable save, and that would be very disheartening. So mass fire, cheap shots is what you want to do, and just keep out of their way. Just always remember they have a 16-inch move, and if they fly over stuff, they cause mortal wounds. So they can fly over flyers, they can fly over vehicles, and if you're running a big blob of them, like a blob of 9, like you can see on screen, that's 9 chances of rolling mortal wounds. Now, technically speaking, what's that, 1.5 that you should be getting out of that unit there? But the potential is that it could roll 9 mortal wounds, which is pretty devastating. So those are the big weaknesses. As standard with most demons, it's just volume of fire, and force them to roll that 4+ invulnerable save as often as possible. But until then, while they're still a large unit, keep well away. Well, that's going to wrap this video up then, guys. We have covered the Screamers in as much detail as I possibly can imagine, how best to use them, what the best buffs, what the best options are for using this particular unit in your games of Warhammer 40k. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you learned something new, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I shall catch you guys on the next video.